Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GBYWN Australia podcast. I am your host, as per usual, Aston Crude. And it's getting to the point now where I'm getting kind of sick of saying that, so I'm going to have to think up of a new intro to my podcast from here on out. But today, it's not about me. Today, I'm ecstatic to have the opportunity here tonight to interview somebody that I haven't seen in 13 years. This guy founded a federation in, I guess you'd say, the early 2000s called AWL, Australian Wrestling League. He wrestled for New Age Wrestling. He also wrestled for XCW and NSWAE, and has also done a little bit of pro training. He has been known over the years as names such as Ace Silver, James O'Mac, but he likes to be called Phoenix these days, and I think later on in his career he was known as Phoenix. Ladies and gentlemen, Phoenix.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on your show here, Aston Crew. Thank you very much for having me, and I must say it's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time
very
coming,
happy
brother.
to be sitting here next to you right now, just, talking.
It's just insane to think after all these years we actually got back in contact, and, what we'll talk about it a bit later.
Doesn't feel like we skipped a beat.
No,
Yes.
And considering I don't remember us having a conversation back in the day. So
Yeah, well, there you go.
it was a long time back, and I was a bit of an asshole too.
No beats to skip.
But yeah, great to have you here, dude, on the podcast.
Thank you.
I think this is going to be definitely one of the most interesting interviews that I'm going to do.
No,
putting the pressure on you right now.
Don't set the bar too high.
Well, I have a history of doing that with you in the last few weeks, but
I'll just keep on flipping over that.
It's interesting to me because I get to learn about federations that I wasn't a part of and that were going on in our state throughout the years, 3 in particular. But you did dabble in XCW for a little while, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But the first question is the same one with every podcast. How did you get into wrestling?
How did I get into wrestling? Oh, gosh. Well, I don't have any whole coconut banging on their head story. I don't remember the first time I saw professional wrestling and thought this is awesome. But, of course, I started watching it along with my much older brother. He would have been in his, 25. I was just a little kid.
Yeah.
Probably about 7, 8. Still in those initial years where printing is real strong. And we'd hire out all the old school videos like Undertaker versus Undertaker. And same as you, Rick Rude, Jake the Snake.
Awesome.
Played the old school, Rumble game on the NES. And
brilliant, dude.
we could have 8 men in the ring at a time. It's unmatched today. It was great. Anyway, and you used to just watch these guys just so colourful and so contrasted. The villain, the hero.
Yeah.
And these epic storylines, some of them completely bogus, but, it was entertaining, if not compelling, and I fell in love with it. And eventually, monkey see, monkey do, I got sick of just watching it.
Yeah.
And
decided to dabble in it at some point.
Yeah.
What federations were you more interested in when, if you can remember back to those days? Was it WWF? Was it WCW? ECW?
It was WWF in terms of what my brother used to hire out, but in terms of what I actually kept up with, because he used to just hire whatever video. It could have been one event from 1992 or another one from, it was just very disparate. So the only time I started watching a consistent wrestling product would have been WCW Nitro, Monday nights, midnights, Channel 9.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
dude.
I made sure that even if I was meant to be in bed, I made sure that I found a way to...
It was on Channel 9, was it?
It was Channel 9.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, midnight.
Brilliant.
Monday Night Nitro, yeah. I watched that for a good few years, and I remember seeing Billy Kidman and Conan and the Filthy Animals, that whole pack.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I think Benoit was in there somewhere. Oh, good old Benoit. Good times.
Excellent.
Good
so
times
you're a
had.
WCW guy. Well,
I was a Goldberg fan.
Because I was huge WCW. Huge. Like, you wouldn't be able to, win an argument with me with WCW versus WWE, even though WWF won the war.
Yeah. Well, they had the whole attitude thing going.
Yeah, and that was great, and I love that too. But looking back, I realised, actually, I think I did prefer WWF, but I was just so loyal to WCW.
And I was young. I was like, easily impressed, and there was so much more colour and colourful characters on WCW, and it was a little bit more bogus than WWE, and maybe not taken as seriously, which kind of, I guess, contributed to the ending there and how things turned out for everyone. So.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It had a good place in my heart.
Yeah, cool. So who were your favourites?
My favourites? Oh, well, Bill Goldberg, I've mentioned that.
Yes.
Just this ass-kicking machine, and his actions spoke louder than his words. I'm a very big on that. You know, actions speak louder than words.
Yep.
Rey Mysterio, I'm a short guy, you know. And after watching for a while, I started thinking, I wish I could do this. And I guess the best role model I had that I could identify with, being kind of similar to me, at least in stature and whatnot, was Rey Mysterio. So he was always really epic to me.
Yep.
Psychosis,
Yeah, I
Thunder
love
Jushin
Psychosis.
Liger,
Yeah.
you know, they were a lot of fun. La Parka,
Yeah.
just his little strut, that was
Yeah.
fun. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Never liked Jeff Jarrett.
Not many people did.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah.
I like Deborah though.
No, Deborah wasn't bad. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of people like Deborah more than they like that guy.
So when did you start to feel like I want to do this? I want to start yarding. Well, you probably didn't even know there was a thing called backyard.
I didn't. No.
Because I thought me and my friends were the first ones that ever did it. We're like, we're so smart.
We're onto something. We're going to share this with the world.
So what was your first experiences with like mucking around with your brother or your friends from school?
Well, funny enough, it was literally baby steps for me. And I'm not just being figurative. I mean, I literally started this whole entire aerial assault on life as a baby. And my dad and my mum both confirmed this story to be true.
Yeah.
Apparently, they used to put me in my crib, and come bedtime, and then 30 minutes later or 15 minutes later, they'll be on the couch watching TV, and I would just come, barely walking into the room, and they'll be like, "What the hell?" And they'd put me back in the crib, and the same thing would happen. And after a few times, they came in the room and had a look through the crack in the door what was going on. And apparently what I would do in my little 2-3-year-old mind was I'd step up to the edge of the crib and put my head over and just look down, and there was a mattress on the floor. Oh. And quite literally, I'd roll. I'd do a swanton bomb out of my crib onto the mattress and go to disturb my parents' slice of paradise at peace.
Brilliant.
And then shooting forward 10, 11 years, I started, once watching again, getting ambitious, so I started just practicing the basics, your roll.
Yep.
Which to me back then, a simple roll on your single mattress was a swanton bomb.
Yeah.
Still. And then that evolved into rolling off a chair. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of a gravity there.
Yep.
A little bit of a fall.
Yep.
Still a roll.
Yep.
And then off the bin onto a couple of mattresses outside.
Okay.
And then that ended up evolving into AWL.
Brilliant. So,
when I was
your
about 12,
first
13.
federation was AWL 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
Brilliant, just like XCW as well. So, the timeline's fitting with both of us at this stage.
Yay.
So
alcohol
AWL,
is not working.
Australian Wrestling League, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you come up with the idea of calling it AWL? Getting friends involved. How was the process in forming your federation?
Well, like I said, I started off just going solo in the bedroom on my single mattress, and when I started taking it outside, I'd have mates around after high school, I think I was in year 8, year 9, coming around, and we just wrestle on the mattresses with the bins, and it's really low-key.
Yeah. And
I always had a thing for organising collectives and managing, and I was a bit of a control freak, to be honest.
Yeah,
these days. And you would know as much as I that, when you see the potential for something, you just want to make it shine. And
make it the best it can be.
Yeah, and I already saw the potential watching the TV screen. I was like, all right, these guys are doing this. This is pretty fantastic stuff. Why can't we do this?
Yeah.
So I got some friends together and eventually set up the AWL, and I tell you, it was about 180 odd tires, like full on rubber tires, just making the base of the ring. Reinforcing the fridges, which we had in each corner, 4 fridges.
Yep.
That was like
your turnbuckle kind of thing.
Yeah. It was good for aerials, good enough height.
Yep.
Had a shed for the super aerials if
you
want to go extra hardcore, and on the tires, used to just chuck on there whatever kind of bits of wood that we could find from Verge collections.
Did you research on the internet or anything how to do this, or you just let's just figure this out?
I just figured it out.
It's funny that tires are actually a big thing in building a base all over the world.
Yeah.
And you figured it out on your
Well,
own.
it's rubber, it's stretchy, it's
Yeah.
bouncy, and I figured bounce is part of it. And then, the wood, the mattresses, it was a bit soft.
Mm-hmm.
These days, I'd have it the other way around. If any, I'd have the wood on top of the mattress
Yeah.
because I've evolved.
Yes.
It
I
was-
wish we thought of building a base. We just wrestled on grass for 10 years. So.
Yeah, it sounds like itchy work.
Yes.
Lots of bruises.
Do you remember the first AWL show?
Oh, the very first. I don't really know because it's tricky to identify where AWL actually truly began. I mean, there would have become a day where I gave it the name, but by that point I would have already been mucking around with my mates for a good couple of months at least.
So you might have already been dabbling in it until you decided finally, this is the name of the federation, these are the titles we
Yeah,
have.
I think it got to a culminating point where I just had enough friends starting to get involved and coming around more regularly, and we all seemed to be enjoying it.
Yeah.
So, and then I was like, all right, let's give it a name. So I gave it Australian Wrestling League.
Yep.
It seemed unique, and we weren't a corporation, a federation. It was more a league, just a small group of friends,
Yeah.
Between 7 and 10 friends.
Excellent.
And yeah, I can't remember the first match. One of I remember one of the first feuds I had was with a guy named James Hardy,
Yep.
and it wouldn't be too hard to imagine who his favorite wrestler was.
No,
No.
certainly not.
And it was
So-
my best mate at school, and it's often follows, I think, who you work really well with in a feud in wrestling. Quite often,
Your best friends.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah,
Me and Diffuser, me and Johnny V, or our best moments in XCW were, together. So yeah,
it's
I
love-hate.
identify with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So how often did AWL do shows?
Well, the whole thing only really lasted for a year, but in that time we crammed in quite a lot of sardines. About two events per week. I think that was
Excellent.
Tuesday Electric and Thursday Carnage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's insane. 2 a week. I mean,
Yeah, it was,
we did one every 2 weeks, so 2 a week's like amazing. That's a lot of footage there.
oh yeah, and we were all small. Like everyone in our group were just odds and odd bods and rejects, and there were other small guys or the tubby guys or the nerds.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a way for us
grouping
to
of misfits.
grouping of misfits. Yeah,
It's always the way it is in backyard.
yeah. I don't know. It gave us a sense, I guess, of empowerment, and it was just fun, and gave us something to work together on and towards. So.
Yep. Did you guys only have these midweek shows? Did you ever build to like a super show?
We to be honest, I don't know why. I don't know why it didn't even occur to me then. I don't recall ever having any major pay-per-views,
Yeah.
which is to me now is insane, absolutely insane. It was just
I hate keep going back to XCW, but we would have Warzone, and then we'd have a super show, and then
Yeah.
Warzone, then a super show.
and that would make sense because that's the whole thing with wrestling is you're telling a story, and then
Yeah.
the story reaches an apex, and
Yeah.
kasplooge,
Yeah.
everyone gets wet with whatever just went kasplooge,
Exactly.
and then they
Yep.
dry off, and you start milking the next.
And then you start from,
Angle.
Yeah, start again.
But
Yeah.
back then it was just, we'd meet up, we'd wrestle, there'd be feuds, but they just seemed everlasting. I think that's why we had such long-standing feuds, because we never had any pay-per-views to...
to have a blow-off match. To
No,
win.
yeah, it was just constant, relentless hammering each week.
That's brilliant. What titles were there in AWL?
There were a few, funny enough, which I came to hold most of them at one point. Actually, about 4 of them all at the same time. Had nothing to do with the fact that I was the owner of the company at the time.
Yep.
But no, we had the usual tag team titles.
Yep.
The AWL title, the most prestigious. Had the hardcore. We called it the hardcore title. The novelty title.
Uh-huh.
So novelty title was just like bizarre, random matches, like pillow fights and
Okay.
ripping each other's. We wouldn't call it lingerie and Brian Panties match. More like the male version of that. It wasn't a good sight.
Oh my god.
The technical title. So that's
Oh,
for
really? Wow.
Yeah. So that's for like the submission and the technical wrestlers.
Wow,
Kind of title
okay.
for that. And the unorthodox title, which is similar to novelty, but it's just more like your other variations, like last man standing. I don't even know. I just thought it was a cool name at the time, I guess.
That's really interesting.
Yes.
How many guys were in AWL, if you could...
Like I said, it would be between seven and 10 fellas, and we had a few drifters, probably no more than 13 guys. It was a really small, low-key
So you'd say your alumni is about
group.
13-ish.
Yeah, but we all knew each other pretty well by the end of it, and we had a lot of pretty insane spots despite the small amount of people. There were some huge moments created between us.
Speaking of that, what are some of your favourite moments if you can look back down memory lane and remember any of them?
Oh, I can remember a few. Speaking from an overarching, big picture perspective, getting flipped through. There was a street fight I had with James Hardy, and we went over the back fence, and there were all these asbestos pieces of what do you call it, wall fence that we'd lean against the already existing asbestos fence and then slam each other through. So but that's not the kind of memorable you're talking about, though that was a significant time, and I'll probably find out how significant in another 20 years or so. Really, they should warn kids not to play with that shit, seriously. Anyway, but we had quite a few hardcore matches that come to mind. There was a fellow we had named Hobo Joe.
Yeah.
And he comes from some dumpster next to some school. Yeah. That was his whereabouts, apparently. And good mate of mine at school, but I don't know why he was a good mate of mine. I used to give him so much pain. So, and it was always him taking it. So much hardcore abuse, and me just wanting to do everything I've seen on TV and more.
Yeah.
And we had a few hardcore matches. I remember one moment in particular, I took him up on the shed, and got him in a razor's edge, powerbomb or crucifix powerbomb.
Yeah.
And held him there, and I was not a nice man / boy, I tell you. Not nice, not friendly whatsoever. I got him up on my back, and he was not into it. He was not wanting to do this spot. And I just thought this would be ultra cool. There's a car cover and a couple of wooden sheets down on the mattresses below. And we're up there a good 3.5, 4 meters high or whatever it is on the shed. And he's on my back saying, no, I don't want to do this, no. And I'm just like, you'll be okay. We're there for a minute. You watch the video, it's very awkward. And then you just hear me say, I'm doing it. And he's just like, ah, shrieking. And we drop, and he just breaks through. Absolutely just breaks. And you don't know if it's just the stuff beneath him breaking or himself. And this awful shriek as he hits. And that was one of many things I threw that boy through.
So is this James Hardy?
This is Hobo Joe.
Hobo Joe, sorry. That's right.
But James Hardy, well, we had a lot of good matches. Me and him were more the technical matches.
You still in touch with these guys?
Nah. I feel like most of the high school guys. A lot of people always keep some residual fans from school. I'm not one of them.
Gotcha.
But the most memorable match, of course, would be the closure match.
Of course, against Biohazard, right?
Against Biohazard, that is correct. That is correct.
What did I know that was the end. I haven't quite got to that bit yet, but as time went on through this 1 year of AWL, one thing I wanted to ask is, when did you first get in touch with the guys from NAW?
I think it came about. It would have been towards the AWL wrapped up after a year, so I'm guessing I got talking to these guys around the 11th month of being in AWL.
So it was right near the tail end.
Right near the tail end, and it was dwindling down, and people weren't coming as much, and I think it went down to 1 week a month towards, one event a week towards the last month. So as that faded out, I met NAW people. I think it was actually, who did I speak to online? I don't actually remember who the person was, but I got talking to someone.
Yeah.
And they roped me in, and I went to I think they came to one of our shows, and we didn't even know each other. We just had a show willy-nilly.
Is this about 2001?
Yeah, it would have been around 2001, around that time frame. 2001, 2. Not the best with dates. Too many head chair shots.
Yeah.
I think.
Excellent. Alright, so, you've had a solid year with AWL, but it's starting to dwindle near the end.
It did. I actually just remembered one really cool match we had at AWL.
Yeah.
It was a match between Hobo Joe and Superfly, which is a small dude. He does the frog splash. And it was literally a street fight. It just went from the ring, through the shed, around the house, because we lived right near a park, into the park.
Oh, okay, yep.
And I
One
think
of those types of matches.
Just all over the shop.
Yeah.
China breaking everywhere. And I think Superfly ended that one with his little frog splash off the actual playground equipment, and it was pretty hardcore. Right on the sand! Oh my god.
We've had a couple of matches at the playground over the years. One time, John had a shift at McDonald's. So I said, well, look, we still need to do this match with you and Scorcher, so can we just go to the park and have the match at the park before the show?
Let's get over and done
Sure. I had this hilarious match at you have to understand, XCW was all about entertainment, not about having great wrestling, so this match at the park was just hilarious, but, some of the guys from ICWS and SPWS, a couple of other federations, they eventually found their way down to a park every now and then, which was always...
kind of caught on.
Yeah, it just seems like in backyard wrestling, at least one, every fed... There's at least one match that made their way down to the place.
Yeah,
good. So why? You have touched on it, but why did you decide to end AWL?
I guess it was just, as they say, and I know it's cliche, but the end of an era. I felt like I had really reached my potential with where AWL could have gone, and to be honest, it could have been better had I not been so controlling. And I had this vision in my head, and I tried so hard to micromanage every single detail.
Yeah.
And
would you say that might have been a reason as to why people might have been pushed away from...
Yeah, definitely. I believe it was. Like, it pushed AWL towards its demise. But with that said, I think I had outgrown the cocoon and was ready to fly. And that's not to say I was holier than thou and my peers, but from the get-go, because I did have that seriousness of vision, and my friends who came around to wrestle, they were just my friends who...
Yeah.
Just came around to wrestle, to have some fun.
Yeah.
Whereas I wanted,
to take it a bit more serious.
Actually have storylines that just never end, thanks to the no pay-per-view thing. And actually, and try and do better than your last match every time, and not laugh halfway through a match and break kayfabe, but take it seriously.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was, not a shark swimming among fish, but I was ready to enter bigger waters with some more serious fish.
Yeah, I guess that would be difficult. You want to take it serious. The other guys just see it as just a fun hobby, but you're really trying to zero in on something that's to make this thing important.
Exactly, and more significant, which it was to me. And then I found AWL, and these guys seemed to be pretty serious about what they were doing. Not AWL, sorry, NAW. Yes.
Yeah,
and all these initials. And I got chatting to them, and I think they came over to my place and held an event just with their guys in my ring, and or the venue, and
they held an NAW event in the AWL.
Yeah, that's when I first met them.
Gotcha.
I believe, and then I had a match against Biohazard. I don't know if now's the opportune time for that.
So the end of AWL, you decided that it was time that you flew from the nest.
That was it.
So you decide, put the AWL title on the line in the last match. If you lost, then AWL would cease to exist and Biohazard would now have the AWL title.
Yes. I don't know if it was the AWL title.
Or was one of the titles?
But it was, it would have been the AWL title then.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, you remember this stuff more than me. It shows how dedicated you are.
I don't know anything about your federation. I really do wish that I could have at least come to a show and check it out, but from what I'm gathering...
I do remember
2001, I didn't even know you existed at that point. So.
Well, I've got the video now, and I remember him actually I'm talking about him not taking my title. So yes, AWL title, the AWL
so you
itself.
Have the last show, do you?
I've got the last match I had where I got put through the flaming table, which was just spelt the end and reduced the AWL to ashes.
Excellent.
And it's left me scars both physically and mentally and emotionally to.
Yeah. So looking back now, just from your experience with AWL, what do you miss about it?
Well, I guess NAW provided a contrast, and I came to appreciate some things in AWL more.
Gotcha, yeah.
Such as, for one, these guys were people I went to school with, so we were a lot more, we intimately knew each other.
Yeah, you were
pretty
friends,
much. We were friends. So, I guess there was less of a need to perform, even though I was always self-propelled.
Yeah.
it was more, you can just have fun with it, muck around, slip up, and it doesn't really matter. Whereas when I went with NAW, obviously it was a bit different. I'm in somebody else's yard.
Yeah.
Still
You're not
adapting.
in charge anymore.
No, so it was a very different footing for me, and the power play and the shifting. But in a sense, I appreciated not being in charge and calling the shots.
Yeah, it was wonderful for me. Sorry, I always do this. I always end up talking about myself.
Just good to reflect. Shows me you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, because I remember 10 years of XCW. In the 10th year of XCW, I joined ICWS, and we ended up doing a co-promoted show where we did XCW versus ICWS, which was
awesome.
Probably one of the most important shows in WA yarding history as far as I'm concerned.
I'd say.
But it was just so fun just to sit back and watch how these guys did it. And there are a lot of similarities I saw with them with what we were like in 2002. They took it quite seriously. They had an idea of where they were headed with everything. Every character had a story. Everything was really cool. And it was just really a relief after 10 years to just sit back and just be a wrestler on the roster instead of chasing up people, calling people on the phone, where are you? This show's about to start, all that stuff, and keeping everyone happy.
I guess it's all about immersion, instead of being the puppeteer pulling the strings from above and being kind of detached from the whole thing, you can just be the puppet.
I could be the puppet for once,
Which is really good. A lot of freedom in that, and joy.
Yeah.
Excitement even.
Yeah.
Not knowing.
So, next section we're going to talk about NAW, New Age Wrestling. I believe it was based in Balga. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. It wasn't too much of a trek. I mean, I was in Vic Park around that time, so...
Yeah. I also remember your dad would drive you.
Did he drive me, or was I driving?
I remember your dad driving.
I would have been
too
young.
XCW.
Yeah, I would have been too young to be driving myself, so he drove me. Yeah.
I remember he seemed very supportive, and I remember asking him, like, do you care that he does all this crazy stuff? No, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's great. I think it's great. And I'm like, I can't believe someone's dad is this supportive of someone's backyard wrestling.
Yeah, he's pretty cool like that. Pretty open-minded. I mean, I was gothic in high school, and he never really clamped down on that at all. He just said, express yourself how you feel you need to. And it's good to be yourself, even if that means being unique. That's a good thing. And
sounds like a good dad.
Yeah. No, he's good for the most part.
With NAW, who was in charge? Was it a collective? Because from what I remember talking to them back in those days, 2003 or 2002, they were they said you shouldn't have just one person be in charge. You should all make the decisions together.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. No one person jumps to mind, to be honest. And it's a long way back. I'm digging. But I did sense them as being a collective. I don't even really know if any one person stood out as being the overseer.
Yeah.
To be honest, it seemed like everyone, someone decided the matches. I can't recall who, but everyone seemed to be doing their own thing and managing their own stuff independently, without having to answer to anyone above. So. Yeah.
Actually, there's a few things...
Have you heard of anyone? And maybe it would jog a bell, because it's been quite some time.
No, I don't know. All I remember was Shane saying once upon a time, we don't have anyone in charge, we all make the decisions together.
I think that's when I came into it. It was very much like that. And
see, because when I was running XCW, I would make sure that these guys, you don't tell anyone what you're doing on the show, you don't tell anyone, so when we're watching it, we can give legitimate reactions and not be spoiled.
Be an authentic audience.
Yeah, that was my thought process. That's why I wanted to be in charge, because I wanted to keep the whole show as a surprise, whatever was going to happen.
Yeah, someone's got to have the burden of knowing, knowledge.
Yeah. So there were a few things that I forgot to ask about AEWL. First of all, with the way that you were doing your booking, what is your philosophy on booking a backyard wrestling show with all the guys that you had?
All right, and angle development, or just
anything, just in general.
Yeah. Well, like I said, then I'm very different in my approach. How I would do things now would be drastically, probably opposite in most cases to how I ran things then. Then I determined every single match, storylines, feuds,
outcomes of the matches.
And even while filming, I think I'd give slight, like I said, micromanage is not used lightly. I'd give, heavy suggestions, and when failed upon, I'd have some really, not the most palatable reactions I got some...
Not the best feedback.
No, if you could call it feedback.
Oh, gosh.
Bit of a temper. Yeah, I would have hated to have wrestled under me and with me at the time, but...
Very interesting.
Which is why I guess it was good going into a Fed where I wasn't in control and actually was wrestling with other people of my caliber. And I think that's why I kind of abused my role in AWLs, because I felt like no one else...
you were way ahead of the pack.
Well, I just felt no one took it seriously. No one, and that's why I guess I was ahead of the pack or whatever. Just because I tried more and I got more results.
Yep.
And yeah.
So when Biohazard put you through that flaming, what was it? A flaming.
Well, it was like a door or something, you know.
Which technically we call a table.
We call it it's backyard wrestling. It's a table.
So when he put you through that flaming table and he got the 1, 2, 3 on you.
No, that was one of many, an onslaught of death-defying, stunts and whatnot.
The ultra-violent maniac.
Yeah. Well, I spear tackled him almost through the shed. Big ass dent in my shed. And that was my finisher at the time, the shooting bullet. But he came back and he put me through the table.
I remember, things are coming back.
Yeah, James O'Mac. Pew pew.
When you took that final pinfall, afterward reflecting back, did you feel sad that AWL was done now?
There was a bit, because it's always that way when you officially close the door and lock that door and then blow that door to smithereens with an RPG. There's always that feeling of, that's it, and it's all gone.
Yeah.
And that chapter's closed, throw the book away, open the new book. We don't throw it away, you put it up somewhere in a distant shelf in the back of your mind.
Of course.
But so it was a bit of sadness, but to be honest, I think, like I said, it had been dwindling in the last few months, and the legs were barely kicking of the AWR, so I had time to adapt, and I think it was really good timing with NAW coming in and New Age Wrestling, and it was a smooth transition as I remember, even though I was disheartened that my passage with my friends had come to an end.
Excellent. Sorry, I got to keep an eye on the cat because I think he's in a bad mood because there are other cats in the area trying to invade his territory. And
we all know that one.
You might hear it on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Brian, my cat Brian, was meowing. He's pissed off about something now.
He's stalking the territory.
Yeah, he's not happy. Anyways, so I did ask you how you got in touch with NAW, probably over the internet. Some sort of forum, maybe EPW forums or something like that.
Something like that.
Because I remember...
or even through Messenger, I think, like meeting someone who knew this person and did wrestling, and we just met up that way. I can't really remember exactly, but definitely through the internet.
Yeah. Because that's how we got in touch with NAW, because Johnny V made a Perth wrestling website. We had the forums, and it was just all the backyard wrestling federations. So there was a section for NAW, there was a section for XCW, SBW. We were all in touch with each other at one point, and that's how we got in touch with NAW. And XCW went on a hiatus for a little bit, and when that happened, Vorney Too Horny had a federation called UBW. And they came to that show through the Perth Wrestling website, and that's how we got in touch with them, which then led us to meeting you and Acid Rain, but we're still talking about NAW here. We've talked about where it was based, who was in charge. What was the atmosphere like stepping into your first NAW show in comparison to AWL?
Are we talking the show at my place or the show on their grounds?
Was that the first show that you were a part of? They were in charge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what was that like, being a part of that new environment?
Well, exciting, in one word. I mean, our match would have been halfway through the card, so I already had a small taste of what they were like and what level they were performing at, and I was just excited to finally be wrestling with someone on a more level playing field and the same level of intensity and risk taking and commitment. So it was good.
Cool.
It was great.
Inspiring. Did the feud with Biohazard continue on from the end of AWL?
The feud with him, not so. Was that final match
really like the end of it?
Yeah, that was kind of the end. It wasn't like I don't think they were really huge on long-lasting storylines and plot lines and all that either. It was just match for match.
So would you say NAW didn't really have a solid base for storylines and angles and booking?
I wouldn't say that, because one, my memory is not the most reliable, and two, I was a new guy and only wrestled a few shows with them, under two hands worth.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they had a few storylines and feuds going on with some of the other guys who had been around longer, and I was just kind of the newbie, just jobbing, to be honest.
Gotcha. So,
I was humbled from
that must have been totally humbling to go from the guy
with 4 belts,
in charge, and now you're
taking the shots,
job
not calling
boy.
them. Yeah,
you're the enhancement talent.
Yes.
Wow. So that must have been. So how did that make you feel, being put in that position from the get-go?
Humble. And that's what I was saying to you.
It didn't upset you or anything? You weren't like, I'm worth better, more than this, or maybe I need to just prove myself?
Well, like I said, it was an opposite end of the spectrum that I was performing from, so to me it was just intriguing and interesting and new to the year of being in complete control, and now I had no control, only a bit of control insofar as how the match goes, and even then I didn't decide the fate of the match. And like I said earlier, when you were saying to me that you could relate to the whole controlling thing and being a prick when you're younger, and you look back and like, I can't believe I was like that.
Yeah.
And I said to you that, with genius and with talent, you have these things inside you, and when you become aware of them, usually at a younger age, you can become overcome with, ego and excitement about it, to the point where you become boisterous and you just throw this energy out without moderation until you learn humility. And humility always comes after you become aware of your talent, so there's always that window where you're like just loud mouth and obnoxious. But and that was for me in AWL, and then NAW kind of had me sit back and feel an equal with everyone else around me, and not in this overseer, in control position. So
and you were brought back down to earth.
Back down to earth. And I was happy with losing the matches and jobbing. It's still...
Yeah, I mean, you already said to me today you really do not care about winning and losing.
No.
You just want to have a good match, and that's
as long as I lose well, I've won.
Yeah. Was it difficult fitting into NAW and trying to make new friends in that crew?
I don't know. I don't know if it was difficult or I just didn't strive for it, because I've always been a bit of a lone wolf, and since school days I didn't seem to speak the same language as most people or be interested in the same stuff, so I used to hang out with these guys and at the events, but we never really had one encounter outside of a wrestling event together. But we all got on well enough, and I didn't have any, it was one kind of messy thing.
We'll talk about that if you want to at some point.
Yeah, or whatever. But, besides that encounter with that particular person, everything else was fine for the most part.
Hunky dory.
Yeah.
Why didn't any AWL...
Team biscuits all around.
Yeah. Why didn't any AWL alumni join NAW? Like James Hardy or Hobo Joe?
Like I said, they just weren't on the same level of commitment. To them, it was just something they did for a bit of fun. Probably, like I said, they were oddballs, so it was for a bit of confidence.
Gotcha. And to probably be put into a new environment with people they didn't know was certainly...
Well, I think just the way I became with it probably started killing their motivator of wanting to feel more confident.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Maybe I didn't want to be a part of AWL.
No. In hindsight, I didn't. I wish I could have raised myself from this. It wasn't as bad as I make it. Well, it was actually really fucked up. But I've changed.
Oh my God,
I tell you.
All right. So what else have I got?
It's all a learning curve.
Yeah. Okay. What are your fondest memories of New Age wrestling?
New Age wrestling. I forget her name, but I remember her breasts, and she was sent to the ring to distract me and my tag team partner right at the beginning of the match. Yeah. And then Shane and Kyle came up from behind, and I think he whipped me up on his back in a rack, and then spun me out neck breaker, and I don't care so much. I'm not so fun about that part of the memory, but the very first part of the memory was really nice. She had really great breasts. I'm not overstating this.
Well, you always remember them.
Yeah.
Those first great breasts that you
What is this insect? I see them around all the time. I've got no idea.
I don't know, actually. I've never seen him before.
It's very peculiar. I see them all the time now. Anyway.
You better hope that Brian doesn't see him. He's going to get fucked up in a minute.
Superplexes off ladders, through tables.
Was it quite hardcore in AW?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hardcore based wrestling.
Hardcore. I mean, these guys could do like moonsaults off a ladder onto plain grass without any padding whatsoever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they just have some. When I was there, they had a few mattresses, a trolley. I think one guy played around with thumbtacks. The first match I had, I wish I could remember names and have an encyclopedic mind.
I've only really got 4 guys that I got the names of: Sledge, Joker, which is Kyle and Shane, Sergeant Buff.
Yeah, Buff.
And the
Buff
foreign.
played a major role, I think, in organising a bit.
Really?
Yeah, I remember. I was trying to remember his name.
Yeah, I can't remember it either, and I've always wanted to get in touch with him. And the Foreigner.
Yeah, the Foreigner. He's a funny one. Or Irish, I think they called him. But the main guy that I actually got on really well with was Acid Rain.
Of course, yes.
Scotty, and it was a lot of fun. And he was a bigger fella, and I'm, typically fall into the small kind of high flyer, agile kind of role.
Yeah.
So he was the yang to my yin. I don't know why that sounds a bit dirty, but anyway. But no, we had a lot of fun together.
It's getting worse and worse.
Just rocking it out. But no, it was a lot of hardcore stuff. We had a number of matches actually, about 3 matches. Yeah, that was good. It was good. Him throwing F5 me onto a trolley, that was painful.
The Armageddon, as he likes to call it.
The Armageddon,
yeah,
that's the one. See, you remember all the stuff that I've been up to.
Yeah, because every time he did the move in XW, he went, Armageddon!
Yeah, Armageddon! I mean, I should be asking you all the questions of, about AWL. And what have I been up to, Mr. Crude? What have I been doing?
Dude, I am, it's the saddest thing to be an encyclopedia of backyard wrestling.
I swear, it's not.
I love it.
It's Illuminati, mate. It's Illuminati. You're watching from the shadows. Everything that's going on.
Man,
you're testing us.
I've totally, immersed myself in the history of our state's backyard wrestling. I love it that much.
I farted once.
During a match?
Yeah, that was memorable. That was an NA dub. See, this speaks to the magnitude of how much I contributed to NA dub, how enmeshed I became.
So did you get to wrestle guys like, Shane and Kyle?
Yeah, that was fun. That's actually when I farted.
No.
Shane gave me a German suplex, and I was like, whoa, what? Whoa! It's just like, took the wind out of me. Literally. It was actually a pretty fun match. That guy, he's got some pretty amazing leg drops. Yeah. Some pretty high leg drops.
I wish I went to an NAW show, because that was around the time that we were in touch with them, and I never went. And I remember they were having a show called Route 66 or something like that. And I was supposed to go down and check it out, but I
was at that show.
Well, yeah?
Route 66.
That's the only
That's
show
where I versed Shane and Kyle, I think. And I've got a photo of me spearing Shane. Yeah, my shooting bullet at that time, so I don't know. Who knows, that might be worth a bit of money someday, but whatever.
Wink, wink, nudge,
nudge. Fun times.
So, any, memories of Sergeant Buff? I remember one thing that I always used to pick on him about. He got clothesline once and he fell forwards.
Yeah, I don't think that just happened once. No, to be honest, I don't remember his wrestling acumen as much as his ability to talk on the mic.
Oh, gotcha.
He was a pretty charismatic, intelligent fellow. Didn't really talk with him much personally on the side or anything, but we each played our roles, and I thought he played his well.
Yep, and the Foreigner?
The Foreigner? He's a funny guy. I just remember that. Super funny. Behind the scenes and on the stage. Yeah. It was hilarious.
Do you remember what titles that NAW had?
There was also Swift. Swift was a really good wrestler.
That's another one, yep.
Aaron.
I remember finding an old website that you had up. It's still on the internet somewhere. I can show you after the podcast.
Holy shit, wow.
A lot of the images don't work anymore because they were hosted by
Angel Fire.
Angel Fire's the cunt of the internet, as far as I'm concerned. But
I feel sorry for Aaron, actually. When he came to one of my place one time, I think, to practice, maybe I met up with him first. I think I did. I think it was Aaron. I got talking to Aaron first, and then he came over.
Is he Swift, is he?
Yes, and I wrestled with him, and then NAW came.
Gotcha.
I think.
Okay, wow.
And
now we're unraveling the memories.
Yeah. And I remember he was on top of one of the fridges in the corner of the ring, and I had him in a belly to belly, and I just hurled him high up, as high as I could, as hard as I could. And he went up, like, as planned, pretty well, and then just not so swimmingly on the way down, or actually pretty swimmingly. Head first, Albeit on mattresses and tires and whatnot, but it was still the cardboard and whatnot. It was a hard landing, and he was just red in the face, like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no," just clutching and just,
oh shit,
yeah, like pretty serious shit.
That's always the thing that, you know, when you do land like that, sometimes you're like, did I do it? Was this the bump that made me go on, you know, tonight as the stupid backyard wrestler?
Yeah, exactly. And I felt I would have been the cause, but fortunately, thank God he was fine, and I also learned to moderate a bit more from that.
Gotcha. So I'm assuming you're not really in touch with any of the NAW guys anymore.
No, not so much. I mean, I saw Biohazard / Mike around the city sometimes, where I used to hang out. I had some mutual friends, and it was kind of part of the punk scene. And the punk scene was part of the general reject / alternative scene. So saw him around, and there was no hard feelings there with him.
Well, speaking of that, because we haven't put that into dialogue yet, if you want to talk about it, you can. If not, well, I'm sure you're alright.
Why
did you leave NAW?
What's there to talk about? You know, the man fucked my missus. What's there to talk about? And these things happen. You know, I'm not going to point the finger and light any pitchforks and start getting...
I mean, this is going back to, 2003.
Yeah, I was 15.
Yeah.
You know, he would have been 16. My girlfriend was 16. And, you know, at that age, you're just excited that you finally... It's legal or acceptable.
You feel vagina in your penis and everything changes.
Yes, and you're allowed to use these parts, and you actually feel like you want to use these parts, and you're just excited to see what happens when they touch.
Dude, I was a huge basketball player. I loved basketball. I wanted to be in the NBA, and then I had sex. And
you started
what?
You started pushing your balls through different hoops, huh?
Exactly. There you go. As soon as I discovered girls, my passion for anything in life went away because it was all about women.
Mike just so happened to discover my girlfriend after I discovered her, just like the next guy discovered her after him, which was me again, but then someone after me again. So, these days I have a very different view on love, but this isn't a podcast about love. It's about backyard wrestling,
which is also translated into love, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But what was the? Do you remember the reaction of the other guys when this was found out? Did anyone say, please don't leave NAW over this or anything like that?
They weren't so much. I mean, obviously at the time I wasn't the most happy in my reaction and kosher as I am now, I'm 28 years old and a lot more experience in this field. But at that point, like, I didn't have a go at Mike about it. I was more upset about my girlfriend, the fact that she slept with another guy.
Yeah.
And even at that age, I had to I wouldn't even call it common. I had the awareness that, it's when your girlfriend and your boyfriend cheats, it's not the fact that some other person slept with them that has pissed you off.
It's the fact that they your trust.
Yeah, and that they've slept with someone else. So why would you be pissed off at this other person when I don't care who Mike sleeps with. It's the fact that my girlfriend slept with him.
Yeah.
So I had issue with her, but it made it awkward with Mike, and I wasn't happy about it. But I did thank him when he told me what happened. I said, thank you for telling me.
So he actually told you?
Yeah.
Wow.
That, she came over in a state of distress and blah, blah, blah. And, and I thanked him. But it was awkward enough to leave. And nobody begged for me to stay back, or anything. I wasn't that deeply enmeshed.
So how long do you think you were part of NAW for?
NAW? Would have been a better part. Would have been under a year.
Gotcha.
About 8 months.
Okay.
7-8 months.
Yep.
A few gigs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Not too many gigs with them. Like I said, not long enough to... Probably been about 6 months. Not long enough to be too enmeshed, but enough to play with some higher, deeper game.
Yeah. And
lift my skill level a bit more. And
did they have many shows? Was it like once a month kind of thing?
Yeah, it was like a once a month or...
Interesting.
Was it twice a month? I think we had practice at least once a month, and then a show on top of that.
Practice too. Wow, we never did that.
Yeah,
we needed it.
Just meeting up and fucking around.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're only allowed one day a month where our mothers would be okay with us getting dirty socks. So
yeah,
those grass stains. You don't want to keep getting yelled at over it.
That's when the real wrestling match begins.
And with that, I think we're going to take a little break here for the end of part 1 before we get on to XCW, XPW, and NSWAE.
Cool.
I need to do a wee, get another beer.
Sounds golden.
So thank you for part 1.
Nice.
Phoenix.
Thank you very much, Crude. I appreciate you having me on this show, and I really respect what you're doing
Thank
with
you.
all of this.
Excellent.
It's huge. Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
Nobody would have, but here you are. Thank you.
It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it.
It's thankless work, true. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, well, we're just about clocked in at 50 minutes for part 1, so thank you for listening to the GBYWN Australian podcast. We'll be back with you for next one for part 2 with Phoenix. We'll see you next time. Thank you.